I'm Becky Worley, filling in for Leo Laporte, and we have an amazing panel today. We are going to break down all the important things in the Apple announcement. We'll figure out if Facebook can get its act together before the next election cycle, and tell you why the EU is going to seriously mess with the memes you've come to love.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, episode 684, recorded September 16th, 2018. Memoji dating. Wow.
This Week in Tech is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Hiring is challenging, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple and smart. That place is ZipRecruiter, where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. And by Stamps.com. Buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it, right from your desk. For our special offer, go to Stamps.com, click the microphone, and enter Twit. And by Blue Apron. Blue Apron makes cooking fun and easy. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free at blueapron.com/twits. And by Lastpass. Secure every password-protected entry point to your business. Join over 33,000 businesses and start managing and securing your company's passwords today. Learn more at lastpass.com/twit.
This is Twit. I'm Becky Worley, filling in for Leo Laporte, and I am thrilled to be joined by a great panel this week, although we will be missing Leo. Brian McCullough joins us, Micah Sargent, and Doctor. I'm going to introduce each of you. I decided to do something a little bit different. I'm going to read what you wrote about yourselves on Twitter. So I'm going to start with Brian McCullough. He's at Brian MCC, and he says he's Tech Meme Ride Home podcast guy, Internet History podcast guy, 2016 TED resident. He has a book, How the Internet Happened, From Netscape to the iPhone. I've got it right here. That's available for pre-order. Brian McCullough, you got a lot of stuff in there. Tell us about the book. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, October 23rd. It comes out, How the Internet Happened, and it's pretty simple. I go from Netscape and the Netscape IPO opening up the modern era to, we thought a good place to end was the iPhone, because that sort of sets the table for the modern era.
All right, well, we're going to get into some of that. I heard on one podcast this week someone said that the EU has lost the internet, so you're the guy to talk about this. Next up, Micah Sargent. You're at Micah Sargent on Twitter, and there's so many questions that your Twitter handle evokes. Dog enthusiast, tech enthusiast, pensive being, podcaster, professor of shower dining, TM, senior editor at Mobile Nations. This begs the question, what is shower dining?
I don't know if this is the podcast to talk about that. It's a rather controversial topic. I have been on a breakfast podcast where I talked about shower dining before. Essentially, it's the idea that some people like to bring beverages and food into the shower while they're taking a shower and consume said beverages and or food. And I happen to be one that does it and is only somewhat ashamed of the fact that I do. And for some reason, it's just sort of stuck. And now people constantly either ask me or tease me about the fact that I do that.
What food is least impacted by the shower?
Ooh, the food that's least impacted by the shower would actually be, well, it depends on your word for impact, because like if we're talking like impact in a negative way, then I would say everybody should try having an orange in the shower, because it's not impacted, it's actually improved by the shower. But people probably don't want to have something like spaghetti in the shower or pizza in the shower, because things can get kind of complicated.
I personally am a proponent of beer or margaritas in the shower, and I'm just going to say those two things really improve a shower. So
I agree.
Owen JJ Stone, Doctor. He writes, oh my lord, we're looking at the Memoji of Doctor.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I always look like this. This is who I am as a person. This is what Apple made me. So
For those of
It
you
is what
who
it
are
is.
listening, I'm going to describe this. I would say, how would you describe your pate? Is it clean shaven? Is it baldesque? Is it follically lessened pate?
I have the second bald head. I have the fifth beard, and I have the third mustache. And these eyebrows, like I said earlier, are blessed by the Lord himself. They look like this in real life. So I don't know who did these, but they look amazing.
Oh, Doctor is adorable to begin with, but his Memoji has these huge, like, Hello Kitty eyes going right now. It's sort of disturbing, but
Yeah, it's creepy. I don't eat in the shower. I'm too big for that. So I do eat. I have a snack, some grapes in the bathtub when I put the candle lights on. I might have a glass of wine, but eating in the shower, I feel bad about my size if I took food to the shower. I'm like, man, I'm already big enough. I don't need to eat in the shower too. You know what I'm saying?
this is the thing about the Memoji of Oh Doctor is he's completely disembodied. It is just a floating head. So you're really working with your best assets here.
We're going to talk about how Apple is missing out on not letting this be a feature with more usage out of it. You know what I had to do to get on this show to look like this? It took me a good hour and 3 devices and then software. It was a lot of work, Apple. You could make this amazing. I could be this every day.
I think if you can perfect this, you could do a Memoji dating show that would be amazing.
Oh,
Whoa.
yes.
Wouldn't that be good?
I'm about to copyright that. Don't mind the title
Right.
when I'm doing. I'm stealing it from you right now.
Go.
Go. And it's like a catfish because you got to reveal who you are after the emoji. Oh my gosh!
Hosted by, what was that guy, Manti Te'o? Who's the guy, the football player who got catfish?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
this is a great idea. I like it.
This is going to be a good panel today, and we have a lot to talk about because it was a huge week for tech news with it being an Apple week. I'm going to be, we started with the sports talk here with football players who've been catfished, and I'm going to do play-by-play and have you guys do the color commentary about the Apple event. I think the big headline for everybody was the Apple Watch 4. They removed the bezel, and they say the screen is 30% bigger on the watch. It's $499 with a cellular connection, $399 without it. Speakers now 50% louder. They've moved the microphone to the other side of the watch to minimize echo. The watch back is now ceramic, and Apple says that's going to improve cellular connectivity. But the thing everybody is talking about had to do with health. It has an electrocardiogram feature. They've put electrodes on the digital crown and on the back of the watch. So you put your finger on the crown, and using those 2 inputs, the watch figures out the electrical activity in your heart. This whole process takes 30 seconds, but they've gotten this cleared by the FDA to provide that ECG data. It gets stored in your health app when you do one of these, and it can be exported as a PDF for your doctor. It also has fall detection. The accelerometer is improved, and the gyroscope, so it detects involuntary motions. The arms and body, I guess, do very specific things when you fall forward or you slip backwards. And it'll make a call for help if you don't move within a minute. So, I think Apple laid it out pretty clearly that the watch is about connectivity, fitness, and health. Anybody think that the new features are a must get and that, this is really going to change the game for the wearables market?
Yeah, this was an interesting moment for me. The morning before, so technically the morning of it was like 2 a.m. Before the Apple event, I went to the ER. I was having some stuff going on with my heart that I hadn't experienced since last year. So I sort of thought it was over, came back again, went to the ER, and, they got me all checked out and said, yes, the AFib is popping up again. We need to look into this some more. And then I sort of tried to make light of the situation by joking about how then Apple was rumored to be announcing a watch that was going to be able to detect AFib and also have ECG and things like that. I think this watch is incredible for many reasons. those things obviously are the things that matter most to me. When I went to the ER in December, I shortly afterward upgraded to the Series 3 because there were improved heart rate tracking features and things like that. And it was easy to give my doctor that information and say, hey, here's what my heart's doing. Let's see what's going on. So I absolutely am going to be upgrading to the Series 4. I do want to note, as I've talked about this week and been very excited about it, I've gotten lots of feedback from people who want to tell me all about 12-lead ECGs and Holter monitors and things like that. It's important to understand that, no, a device on your wrist is never going to replace the medical instruments that you are using in the hospital or a Holter monitor that you might take home and use for a week that's monitoring your heart 24/7. However, this device is better than nothing, and to have this with me everywhere I go is pretty great. So I'm quite excited about having these extra heart rate tracking features, but I am certainly not assuming that this is going to serve as a replacement for anything that I can get in the hospital or with my doctor.
Well, it's got to be peace of mind, too. I mean, if you're having something with your heart, I mean, it is called the silent killer, so it's scary because you don't know when your heart's out of regular sinus rhythm. And so having that data. One quick question there. How does the Series 3 already do that? Does it keep a log somewhere?
So the Series 3, of course, it doesn't do the ECG thing. And with watchOS 5, and I think that this next feature is coming later this year, it's going to be better at doing rhythm tracking. So I think it's all like algorithms based. They've just figured those out. They'll pop those in and, it'll be better about tracking. Right now, what the Series 3 does is it just has an improved heart rate sensor over previous models. And so I was using the Series 0 Apple Watch way long time ago, and upgrading to the Series 3 improved that. And it also offers a high heart rate detection. So it's, of course, keeping a log throughout the day. And then it's like, whoa, your heart rate's over blank and you've just been sitting. So it doesn't make sense that your heart rate is like this. You watching a scary movie, or is there something going wrong? And for me, that was important because that's what led me to the ER the first time around, was having this heart rate that was above 140 and I was doing absolutely nothing.
All those stories that popped out this week of like concern trolling and like this, Apple claims this is a medical device, but it's not really a medical device. Like I feel like that was everybody like writing for headlines, but I found it more interesting. Like if you read in beyond the headlines in those stories, like, Apple was very clear that, and even the FDA in giving them the clearance for it, made them make it clear that this is not a replacement for actual, doctor's attention or medical care or anything like that. But I found it interesting, like, in a way, Apple's doing it right, or is it at least doing it methodically? You know what I mean? Like, so this is technically classified as a Class 2 device for regulatory purposes, and like a Class 1 medical device is a tongue depressor, and a Class 3 is an actual pacemaker, right? So I think that actually what the interesting story here is that Apple isn't going whole hog into we're making medical devices now. They're creeping in incrementally, and they're doing all the steps right, and they're and actually I think that that'll help them gain credibility. So that maybe however many years down the road, when it can do more serious medical monitoring, then they'll have this track record behind them of being methodical and taking it slowly and doing it the right way.
The specific information, they say it's not for people who have heart conditions, that it's for people who are generally considered healthy. And as you mentioned, it's not FDA approved, it's FDA cleared. So it's a step into the health aspects, and the fact that it passively tracks all this and you can access it after the fact, kind of a black box, if you will. It's great when you're going to your doctor. I was talking to a cardiologist at Stanford, and he had worked with a lot of the folks who make wearables, and overall, he said that the technology is really accurate. So it's, the calorie counts are all over the map and not very accurate at all, but that the heart rate monitoring is pretty good. And the fact that you can now do that in conjunction with this sinus rhythm and finding out about tachycardia or any of the AFib that they're talking about, it at least gives you data to go to your doctor with.
So I'll be the opposite of everyone.
We love you for that.
So the Series 3 tells you if you had a high rate. The 4 series will actually tell you now if you have a low rate. That's really nice. But the way Apple presented it, the way regular people consume it, it's FDA approved. Oh my gosh. People are losing their minds because they don't read and they just hear the way Apple presents things on stage. So unless you're a tech person and you're reading in the articles, people think that it's going to be a solution to some of their problems. I have heart problems too. I go to my doctor every 3 months. And yes, I can use my Series 3 watch to give her like an average update. But usually when I'm there, checking that versus what they're checking is usually not accurate at all, which I find. But again, that's neither here nor there. There's also things like there could be something wrong with the watch. So, the dependability of it versus the credibility that Apple gets is what concerns me, the way people just gush all over everything Apple. Again, cleared, not really approved. I love to get my hands on one because I do take medication, but again, it's not really for me. It's for a healthy person that might need to know something, because if you're sick, they don't want you relying on this thing at all. You need to rely on your doctor. So yay, we can do an EKG. Maybe we get a defib in Series 5, resuscitate myself. That'd be cool. You know what would sell me on this? You know what would get my money off the bat? If it had a glucose reader. If it knew my sugar levels, I would throw somebody to the ditch and spend $1,000 on that watch right now if it tell me glucose. But again, that's what Apple does. They hype everything up, make you feel good about yourself. They're in this series, in this watch, they are ahead of the competition. Bottom line, after all that yelling I just did, they are ahead of everybody else. So at least they're a step ahead of everybody. But I'm just saying, don't go dependent on this watch to wake you up in the middle of the night and say, hey, you having a heart attack, brother? Or you dreaming hard? Like, what's going on? Wake up. The watch ain't going to save you.
Well, the chat room said that the new watch is going to be like the WebMD of heart disease, that everybody's going to have some sort of moment and freak out, and that cardiologists are going to see their appointment schedules just fill up. Is there an unforeseen consequence that we're not anticipating?
So 2 things real quick. One, I've fallen and I can't get up. Oh, we got a slip thing going on. Everybody's made that joke. I made it instantly as soon as I saw if you fall, it'll shut up. My kid will fall every 30 seconds. I think I'll be calling the cops 5 times a week. Secondly, last year at the Super Bowl, a guy's watch was alerting him and bells was going off because he was excited about the Super Bowl. They scored a touchdown and his heart rate was like 156 or something. And the watch is like, you're dying right now. Is everything okay? You need to go call somebody. So, he was in a situation where he wasn't freaking out because he knew why his heart rate was through the roof. But again,
I think they're so smart, though, in really identifying heart disease and falling, because I don't know if it's just serendipity, but my dad's been talking about getting an Apple Watch for a long time. And
that's where it's good.
Suddenly becomes a replacement for that little thing that they advertise on infomercials.
Can't get up.
Yeah.
Well, lots of people commented on that, how they're clearly targeting an older demographic. There was the Hokey Pokey song. There was, I can't remember who pointed it out. It might have been, I'm sorry, but that it wasn't a video of all thin, young people. It was people of all sizes and all ages. And so, a lot of people commented that maybe this is targeting an audience that wouldn't have considered a wearable before.
One thing that Jason Snell was talking about earlier in the week from 6 Colors, Mac enthusiast from way back, is that finally Apple has figured out what the watch is. That when it first came out, it was going to do everything under the sun. It was going to be photos. It was going to be a payment technology. It was going to be everything that you ever wanted. And now they have really clearly identified what the mission of the watch is. And it's some connectivity and then the health and the fitness aspects. And I'm wondering, have any of you guys had the watch with the cellular connection? And do you think that is worth the extra $100 and the $10 a month? I mean, does any of that make sense? And is that the future too?
My next one is going to be the Series 4 that I've ordered will have cellular connectivity. It's not something that makes a whole lot of sense to me, I think for a whole lot of people, because when I sort of look at, my family is kind of like the I guess, litmus test. I don't know exactly what's it called, but whenever I'm sort of trying to figure out, sort of get out of my own head and be more empathetic about what everyday people use instead of those of us in tech, I can just look to my siblings and family members and see sort of how they use technology. And I don't see any of them ever walking out the door without their phone. Like, that comes with them. That's this thing that comes with them. And so the benefit of the Apple Watch, of course, is to have those opportunities available to you without having the phone nearby. So when it comes to something like health and, potential emergency situations, that is where the cellular could come in handy. But I don't think that those things happen enough that it's like, yes, go ahead and spend all this extra money to get a cellular version. But all of that said, as the person who is steeped in technology all day and wants to try new things, I am looking forward to, from time to time, leaving the house without my phone and just having my watch and seeing what that's like and how it works for me.
The one place that it's made sense for me is in the water. If I go for a big paddleboard or if I'm surfing, it's the one time when I've actually gotten a call from my boss while I was surfing and had that conversation on the watch. And it always amazes me that it sounds as good as it does, but I can't think of many other scenarios besides the water when you're actually not going to have your phone with you.
So can I jump in on that?
Oh, please do.
Shameless plug. I have a new podcast called Raising a Ninja, and the episode that's dropping tomorrow is Situational Awareness. And so last year, my daughter had 2 instances where there was a threat to the school. One was they thought a kid brought a gun to school, and the other one was something with violence in the school, where the school was shut down, the cops came out, you can't get a hold of your kid. My daughter, the day after the first time it happened, I went and got, because I had the first Apple Watch, I went and got myself a Series 3. I got her a Series 3. She understands now that if she's in a situation where there's an active shooter, there's a fire, anything like that, she presses the SOS on her watch. I'll know what's going on. I can talk to her. I can find her in that school, because she was in elementary school. They don't carry their phones around with them all the time because they're not allowed to. And even in high school, they might not always have their phone if they're in gym or whatever. With the watch on, she has her watch with her everywhere she goes. We live in a walking district where she has to walk home. Same thing. She's walking home. She's got that watch on instead of having her phone out. And for me, it is very important.
In the class, in the chat room, they just said that their school has banned Apple Watches from the classroom, just like they've banned phones. So that's a really interesting use case.
That's ridiculous.
And there's the whole thing about parents and kids and devices. That's an interesting way of thinking about the watch.
And I went to her teacher specifically, and I said, you were not to remove her watch. This stays on her at all times. This is her device. She's responsible. She knows not to play with it. She knows not to use it. But for me, again, that peace of mind of her having that on her wrist, and I'm not trying to act like I'm Rambo, but I'm not going to be like those people in Florida sitting there with cops not going in there because they're scared. And I'll know where my kid is. I'll know what room she's in. I'll know what part of the building she's in. I want to know those things. I can talk to her if she's hiding or doing anything. So not for nothing. First of all, I got a deal on a buy one, get one half, and my bill is I only pay $10 for the one line and $5 for the next. It's worth it. People out there asking me about bulletproof backpack for $500. I'd rather spend $500 on this watch and $10 a month and have that kind of security than thinking your kid's going to walk around with a 40-pound backpack on top of the books and they're going to carry the bag around with them everywhere they go, because they're not going to. So that watch and that cellular service for me, well worth the investment for my child.
I did have one moment where I thought that might work for my kid. My daughters and son are a little bit younger than your daughter, I think. And so she was going on a bike ride, and she and her friends were going to go down through the neighborhood and go to the trailhead and ride on the trail. And I thought, this is perfect. I'll give her my watch, and she can call home if they need anything. So everything's great. She gets home about, 45 minutes later. And I said, that was so great, knowing you had the watch. And her face just goes, she'd sat down when she was on the mountain bike trail, taken the watch off to show her friends, and left it on the ground.
No.
What?
So GPS, because it was cellular? Like, could you go find it, or what's the
I'm
deal?
wearing it now on my watch, on my wrist. It was found. But that's a $500 piece of equipment that you're putting on a kid's arm.
And pro tip for a parent, you might want to have them get used to wearing it before you just send them off on an adventure. You know they kids. You know what they're going to do. again, if you follow me, you could get all my tips and tricks. My daughter's had a cell phone since she was 4 years old. She's never broken or cracked a screen or lost a phone. Her watch is in perfect health. Like, I have a routine structure for her and for any kid to keep them on track for not breaking or losing their devices. But
you should have a boot camp for adults. Adults can come and pay you to learn those techniques as well.
There you go. That along with my dating emoji app, we gonna get this thing. I'm
sending my kids to you for summer camp, Doctor.
Let's go. Oh man, they'll be back so fast. They'll love you so much after dealing with me. They don't want to deal with me.
I want to move on to the phones. Unless do you guys, Brian or Mike, have anything else you want to say on the watches?
Nope.
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I do want to one more time though reiterate, and I think Odocta covered it quite well. This is not a replacement for going to your doctor and having them strap all of those different pads all over your body and freak you out, and then say we're checking you for a heart attack, and then you're like, I'm having a heart attack. No, we're checking you for one. And it's not a replacement for the very expensive Holter monitor that you have to wear for a week that you take home, and you look like a robot with a battery pack connected to you. This is not a replacement for either of those things.
I love that battery pack, man. I felt like I was like Darth Vader for like a week. I kept looking at myself in the mirror. I'm your father.
It was what happened in December. It was the day before my birthday, so I wasn't able to go out on my birthday because heart stuff, and also because I looked like a robot and didn't want to be out and about. So anyway, Apple Watch is great. I'm looking forward to having these features and having this information to give to my doctor, but you need to know that it is not a replacement.
Right. All right, let's move on to the iPhones. We saw an iterative release of the iPhone XS and the XS Max. So let's go through the specs here. So the XS is a 5.8-inch display. It's as big as the 8 Plus in terms of that display, but it's in a thinner form factor. The iPhone XS Max is 6.5 inches. They are $1,000 and $1,100 respectively, come in gold, silver, space gray. They ship September 21st. OLED screens, A12 Bionic chip. The camera, the 12 megapixel camera. It's got a bigger sensor, 2x optical zoom. They really spent a lot of time on the camera aspects. You really realize how much a part of their sense of what they're improving is based on that camera. And it's obviously a huge part of why we upgrade our phones. These have smart HDR, the 2 cameras, so that it can do, they say, 1 trillion processes per photo, 4 frames. Then they create inner frames at a different exposure. So what they can do then is combine them and maximize where the highlights and the shadows are. There's a feature in the software that people are pretty excited about that lets you use a slider to soften or sharpen the back focus, so you can really mess with that depth of field. So those are the XS and the XS Max. We'll get into that in 1 second. The iPhone XR is the $750 model. It comes in white, black, blue, yellow, coral, and product red. The biggest difference, it has only 1 camera, so you don't have as much depth of field, bells and whistles that you can play with. It's an LCD screen, not an OLED, and it doesn't ship until October 26th. So I want to start with the naming convention so we can just get that right out of the way. iPhone XS, iPhone XS. The Apple folks say XS. Why is this even an issue? But everyone else
says XS.
Did you notice how much trouble you just had trying to do the rundown? I had the same problem doing the show that day. My writing partner and I got done. I recorded the thing and I listened back, before posting, and I'm like, did I even get that right? Like, I didn't even understand what I had said to a degree. And you just, it's so hard to even encapsulate. You just tried to do it in a minute and a half, and it's fumbling.
I watched this with my 10-year-old son, and he got to the end of it, and he says, "Mommy, I want the XS Plus Max."
So the way I call them is, I call it the iPhone really? I call it the iPhone Christmas, and then I call the XS the iPhone Trump. Like, really? You trying to tell me the same thing with the same thing? You trying to act like it's different? Oh, okay. You gonna charge me? Okay, let somebody say some positive stuff so I can get into ripping all the stuff that Apple did wrong again this year. I think so. Somebody go say something positive.
I don't think we have any positive things to say about this in particular. I've noticed that, again, sort of going back to, okay, what do people, when I take off I'm a tech person and that's all I think about kind of thing, and just listen to what everyday people say. They say iPhone X and iPhone 10 interchangeably. But one of the things, like, I saw this, I can't remember who was talking about it, but the Roman numerals are hard enough for folks already. And about the only time that it seems that the general public is interested in Roman numerals is when that big sports ball game comes around where there are lots of Roman numerals.
Even
like happens
that,
in
I can't
Super
remember
Bowl or
which
something.
Super Bowl it was because I can't parse all the X's and L's and I'm too lazy. So I'm
MXVLSI or whatever.
Well, and then they added a C and an R. So like it's just begging you to call it the X at this point.
Yeah, and that's what it makes it hard because exactly, you've already got a Roman numeral, then you want to add a letter afterward, and people get confused. And it's just, at this point, it's like, I don't know that any of it makes any sense. But for me, it doesn't matter because when I go in, to look at what I'm going to get, it's like, I want the bigger one of this or the smaller one of this. And I think that is many times how I don't see my younger brother going in and saying, I want the iPhone XS. I want it in 256 gigabytes. I want it in stainless steel. He would go in and say, can you show me what you have here? I know I want the bigger one. And I think I want it in white glass. And you know what I mean? Like, we all use different terms to describe these things. And so it's just kind of like Apple that does it this way.
Yeah,
and those of us in the tech industry have to go along with it.
They have even complicated that because it used to be, well, the cheaper one's the smaller one. But let me say, the request was for say something positive. So on the one hand, that's gotten confused because it used to be the cheaper one was the smaller one, and it also had the not as good camera, and it still has the not as good screen, but it's a fantastic screen. So here's a positive thing to say. You can buy any one of these three and you're essentially buying the same phone. Like, people have made that point that there is no high-end Apple phone now. They're all the best phone. I think Gruber or somebody said that you go to the store and whatever one you pick, you're not gonna be jealous of someone that had a Plus or whatever. That's gone.
The size aspect is, I think, a good thing because here's my iPhone 8, and then here's the guys here 3D printed the new iPhone here, and you can see it's pretty much the same form factor, at least of my 8.
But which one are you referring to? Is that the R?
This is the S10S. Do you see how hard I'm working? There's smoke coming out of my ears as I'm trying to remember this.
These are the worst names. These are the worst names since 2 months ago or a month ago when the Note 9 came out with lavender purple and ocean blue. I'm like, ain't they the same thing? If you just said lavender, wouldn't I know that that's purple? If you said ocean, wouldn't I know that's blue? How you just redundancy with the names? And then Apple comes along and says, hold my beer. And then they come out with all this stuff. And so you saying that all the phones are the best phones now? Oh, no, they're not. No, they're not. Okay. Are we at the feature part yet? So I can
Let's do it. Go. I want to hear this. He was going.
Let me tell you something. Dual SIM cards. Welcome to 2012. Oh, we got dual SIM cards. You know you can do that, right? You got an eSIM card. Other people had that. Cool. Okay, next thing. Stereo recording. What? They had that on other phones too? Oh my God! But ours is magical stereo recording because we have waves in the video. It's amazing. Oh wait, what's another feature that we have? We have HDR picture technology, nanobyte, gigabyte thermal timeout learning. Pixel had that in their camera last year with okay. So what do we have new again? What do we do? What do we innovate? I don't know. Then you go talk about the battery life. What cell phone have you ever seen in your life that doesn't just tell you 13 hours with an asterisk, 14 hours with an asterisk? Apple came along and said 30 minutes more than the old phone you used to buy. 20 minutes more than that little phone you used to have, and maybe 15 minutes more than this new phone you're going to get if you get the big one. Just tell me how long the battery lasts, because you won't tell me what's in there for the battery. And then the 1 meter versus the 2 meter. You couldn't have just made that all the same depth. Really? I still got you just the 2.4 cents it would have cost you because you told me I still got the same chip in it and I'm not supposed to be jealous. Then you come with this wackadoodle screen. You charge $749. This phone should be $599. They want this phone for everybody and every kid. There's so much better phones out there for that price range that you could get in the world, and they say, oh, $749 for everybody. For who? Entitled children are gonna bug their kids so they can do this emoji thing? That's all it's for. You're just trying to get money. Apple ain't innovated nothing. All they do, I'm sorry, I'm yelling, I'm so upset. All they do is raise the price of their phones, and they make more money on the margins. So when I spend $1,100 on a Max and I only get 64 gigs, and I look at a Note, and it starts at 128 gigs because, they live in America and the world as we live in, and they know that nobody wants the 64 gigs. Then they offer you a phone at $512 for $2,500, and then you could put another $512 on top of that. I could get a terabyte of space with a Note. You know how many videos of cats and dogs and my child I could do with a terabyte on my phone? I can record my life for a month straight with a terabyte. But Apple is just squeaking on by with a 64, then to a 256. I hate so much the things that they do. Now ask me if I'm buying it and which one I'm buying.
That is so true. Well, it goes back to the whole idea that there are thousands of people in the Apple marketing department who are working so hard on this messaging. And if it's this confusing, if it's this obscuring of actual comparisons to other products, it's on purpose. This is no accident. It's not like they just rolled back to the Gil Amelio days where they had 10,000 SKUs and Steve Jobs came in and cleaned it all up and simplified it. They're doing this on purpose. It's obvious, right?
It's the goal.
I don't know.
What's the goal? It's the goal.
Yeah, I don't know that that's obvious to me.
Well, why wouldn't they simplify it? Why? My thought is that the naming conventions are meant to confuse you. It's the same thing they did with the iPad. The new iPad went from iPad, 2 or whatever, to iPad new. It makes no sense. So if somebody in a meeting said, that makes no sense, and they said, we know it's on purpose so that people won't know how new or how old or if it's iteratively improved or not.
And speaking of the people there, shame on all the people that clapped when that fool said $10.99 for the iPhone Christmas. All those people that clapped, how much are you paying these people to clap for that? What are we clapping for?
Anything that's on their campus, that it's the engineers clapping.
Yeah. And that was the most pitiful clap. Go back and watch it. They even knew, come on, it's the same phone, really? You ain't do nothing different. Because normally when you spend more money, it's not just, hey, we'll give you a 0.3-inch better screen. They usually have optimization or something different in the phones. But I'm so angry.
Brian, any thoughts on why they would do this if it wasn't intentional?
Well, okay. I said on the Tech Meme Show this week that, car companies figured this out 100 years ago. Like originally they did Model A, Model T. After you do it for a decade, 2 decades, it gets too complicated. And then it's the 2018 Honda Civic. And then there will be a 2019 and then there will be a 2020. So, by the way, my personal theory is that when would be a really clean time to break convention and say it's the 2020 iPhone? It might actually be next year because car companies do that. Like they release, or announce the year earlier, this is the 20. So what if next fall, the new iPhone is the 2020 iPhone? And then that would be a clean break from this sort of confusion and the old naming conventions, and they just move to the year model.
I like it. I vote yes.
Somebody give Brian a beer. That was good. I like that. That's good. That was insightful. That'll make everything better. If that happens, then all the rest of this mess will feel okay.
Well, and then also, so then if you have this problem, you could go back to then there's the Mini and the Max and the whatever. But if it's the 2018 Max or the 2018 R, then it's you're hanging your hat on something solid as opposed to whatever they're doing now.
Was there anything you guys thought we would see from the Apple event that we didn't, that you wanted to?
Well, obviously the power mat But then even in that beginning video with the Mission Impossible thing, and she's doing like I was super expecting that there was going to be these big advances for the earpods, and there was nothing. Like that's a story that I want someone to dig into.
How did they spend that much money on a Mission Impossible intro when this is the 1 year your pictures got leaked? Y'all can't do Mission Impossible after leaking out the pictures of the phone and the watch. Tim Cook, you need to fire yourself and get your own clicker, brother. Walk across camera and get your own clicker. That's what you need to do, because there's no reason for Mission Impossible when you can't keep a picture locked down. That would have never happened to Mr. Steve Jobs. Never in his. So the other thing that's driving me crazy about this phone, this is I'm getting the Max. I'm getting the 256. I'm about to spend $1,200 on a phone with a funky monkey brick from 1976 on it. I can't even get quick charging. For $1,200, I can't even get a quick charging block. For $1,200, I no longer get headphones and a dongle. I hate dongles, but you want me to spend $9.99 for this dongle going forward after I just spent $1,200? Come on, Apple is wild, boy. Apple
no accessory bloat here, Doctor. They're not going to give you that little thing you plug into the wall because it's not environmental. It's not environmental.
You have quick charging, but you don't supply quick charge. You can go get a OnePlus phone for $500 right now, and guess what? They give you a quick charging block. I hate Apple so much, and the fact that I'm still addicted to these phone systems drives me crazy, because that's just ignorant. They just slapped me in my face and disrespected me. And they lucky I can't keep a mean face with this emoji, because this is me scowling right now. I'm struggling to keep it mean.
Memoji scowl is tough.
It's rough. My face, I'm gonna have a headache when I get done the show.
You still have little kitty Memoji eyes, though, so it doesn't quite all translate. You are, though. I've decided that there's racontours. You're a rantontour. Your rant is the best rant in the business, man.
I do. I appreciate you.
Micah, anything that you wanted to see that you didn't?
Well, actually, I would love to briefly touch on the advancements that didn't happen this year. I think it's fascinating that, so in years past, I have always had this like internal desire to get the new iPhone. It comes out, it could be the S series or it could be the normal series, always very into it. And this is the first year genuinely that I have not had that feeling that these new phones.
Me too.
There's nothing about them that is so much greater, or even like a small amount greater in my mind than the 10 that makes them worth it. And I think part of the problem is that I was like madly in love with the 10. It is a fantastic phone. It felt new, it felt fresh, it was exciting. And these phones, they spent so much time on stage. I was like, I thought this was a consumer event because they had this whole section just talking about that A12 Bionic. And like, it's cool. It's got more cores and all of this other stuff. And the image signal processor is improved, but that doesn't translate that well to your everyday consumer. And there's nothing about these phones other than just like a larger screen that to me really stands out. Like faster Face ID is interesting, but I never really thought that it wasn't, fast enough. And the better waterproof stuff. Doctor already taught me not to drop my phone in the pool, so I'm good there. There isn't anything here that stuck out to me that if someone came to me and said, hey, should I upgrade? And I say, do you have an iPhone 10? And then they say, yes. I'm going to say, no, don't upgrade. Please don't upgrade.
That's what I was going to ask. What phone does everybody have?
8.
iPhone 10.
8.
So I have the 7, and now I'm going to upgrade to the Max. And I asked my daughter, who has my 6S Plus, I said, do you want the 10? Because I was just going to give it to her just to get it. I knew I was skipping it. And she's like, no, it's too small. I don't want it. And I'm like, are you insane? Like, this phone's so much better. She's like, I don't care. I want a bigger phone. So now, again, she's looking at me like, she didn't ask for it. She's like, but if I can't get the bigger one, then I'll just keep this 6S Plus, or I'll take your old 7S Plus. I don't want that smaller form factor in my hand. She wants to be able to hold the bigger device. And that's something that's interesting to me, because that's her main device, so she wants it bigger. But if you have the 10, there's absolutely no reason for you to upgrade at all. And that's I feel like that's going to be a strike against Apple going forward. And I guess they're waiting to see if this R is a big hit to get quote unquote cheaper sales. But So many people have this X. I don't know who's upgrading.
Cheaper at $750. That's just crazy. We're going to take this opportunity to take a break. Leo is on vacation. I'm Becky Worley. Happy to have you here with Twit. And Leo's going to tell you something about our sponsors.
Becky, thank you for filling in for me on Twit. And I did come back, though. I did come back because I have a very important announcement to make. We're hiring. No, well, I'm not. But when we were, we used ZipRecruiter. We found out kind of as a bit of a shock a couple of months ago that our bookkeeper was leaving. She gave us 2 weeks' notice. But this was a big crisis for Lisa because otherwise, if she didn't find somebody right away, she's doing the books and she doesn't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. We needed a bookkeeper fast. I was eating breakfast when we found it. I said, honey, here's a chance to use ZipRecruiter. We'd used it before with great results, but nothing like this. This blew my mind. So she put the posting up on ZipRecruiter. Now, a couple of things happened. First, right away, ZipRecruiter posted on 100-plus job sites, including Twitter and Facebook. So you're reaching out everywhere, every corner of the world. Everybody who could possibly be interested in this job is seeing it. That's a good start. But then ZipRecruiter does something remarkable. With powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and then invites them to apply to your job. It's like kind of like a automated headhunter. They find the right people and they say, hey, you ought to look over here. There's a great job waiting for you. And then they apply. And this was amazing. I mean, we did it at breakfast. Before lunch, we had 4. It was funny because they're coming in like in an hour, the first one. And Lisa goes, oh, look, this is good. She's good. And then another one, oh, this person's perfect. Oh, it was really fun. By lunch, we had 3 or 4 great applicants thanks to ZipRecruiter. I've never seen anything like it. And as the applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one, spotlights the top candidates so you won't miss a great match. They format all the resumes so they're easy to read, and it all goes into the ZipRecruiter inbox, not into your inbox, not into your phone. It's all in ZipRecruiter's interface. And they have screening questions. They have all sorts of ways to narrow it down. ZipRecruiter works so well. It's not just our experience. 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get at least one qualified candidate through the site, quality candidate through the site within the first day. Within the first day. We got 4 within the first 5 hours. It blew my mind. ZipRecruiter really works. No wonder it's the highest rated hiring site in America. I'm thrilled to have these guys as advertisers. I'll tell you what, it really works. And we have a great employee thanks to it. You could try ZipRecruiter free at our exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/twit. That's right. It's free. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. The smartest way to hire. Becky, I would hire you if I could. Back to Becky Worley and This Week in Tech.
Oh, Leo, we've worked together on and off for long enough. You don't need to hire me. I'll just come and say hi every once in a while. I'm Becky Worley, filling in for Leo, joined by a great crew this week on This Week in Tech. Brian McCullough. He's the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast guy. Micah Sargent is at Mobile Nations. He's the senior editor there, mobilenations.com. And Doctor, who I didn't get to read. He's joining us in Memoji form, with JJ Stone. He says on his Twitter profile that he humbly tries to be Clark Kent. And I mean, the humility in that statement is evident at all times, Doctor. We are going to jump into, it's so Apple heavy this week. You know, we always try and mix it up, and we will talk about other things, but this was the big news of the week. I think everybody else knows that when Apple has an event, just don't even bother. So I did just want to talk a little bit about the fact that OS 12 is going to be coming September 17th. That's this Monday. They say older phones are going to be 40 to 70% faster at certain tasks. They specifically called out the iPhone 6 Plus as benefiting from this upgrade. And they mentioned things like the camera app will launch faster. The keyboard will be accessible faster. The other big thing that's coming in iOS 12 that I wouldn't say it's been promoted, but it exists, is the screen time feature. And this is not an app, but it's buried in the settings, and it is something that Apple is doing in response to complaints and criticism from people even within their own organization about the addictive nature of phones. I know that word comes loaded for a lot of people who think that gadgets and addiction, that it's an overuse of the word, but the fact that we are excessively checking our phones and using apps and using social media sites. And so what this screen time function will do is it'll tell you how many times a day you pick up your phone. It'll graph when those interactions happen. It will monitor how much you use certain apps. It can be used to set limits on each app so that after, say, an hour of Instagram, it pops up and says, hey, you said you just wanted to limit yourself to an hour. It's been an hour. You can override that. It also can put your phone in grayscale at certain times of the day to make it less appealing, kind of like the nighttime mode that we have now. But it's interesting to me as a lot of different companies have received this feedback. And I know, I mentioned Instagram, and they have talked a lot about the fact that they know that they have to do better at helping their users to limit their time and just the black hole that you can get sucked into. Anyone think that this screen time feature is going to significantly affect the way that we as a population excessively use our gadgets?
I think it can help. I do want to say, so psychologically speaking, there have been very real, very accurate comparisons between the effects of addiction to things like drugs, food addictions, things like that, and the addiction that folks can have to devices, to video games, to these things where right now people seem to be, they've got internet addiction, they've got phone addiction, they've got this, that, and the other. I think a lot of people will claim maybe that they or someone that they know does, but there are real situations where that is a real thing, and psychologically it looks the same as other forms of addiction that we've seen. So I don't think that it is a good idea to sort of wipe that off and say, oh no, these addictions don't exist, because we've proven that they do. When it comes to these new screen time features, I think they're fascinating because you have to sort of open yourself up to being nannied a little bit by your device, and being, I think, open-minded to letting it change your habits. And if you find yourself sort of annoyed and you keep shutting it off, like, it's not going to work for you. If you're constantly just saying, no, it's not going to work for you. With screen time, I haven't done any active screen time effects. I have gone in and turned it on, and I've checked in to see how my usage is, and it's pretty kind of horrifying.
What were your biggest surprises?
How many times I picked up my device in a day. That was the biggest thing. I was like, I don't remember picking it up that many times. This is not okay that I am lifting up this phone. And what's cool is that it's so integrated with other parts of the operating system that if you set up in your clock, if you set up your bedtime, which is this feature where you set what time you want to go to bed, what time you want to wake up in the morning, and it will sort of let you know, hey, it's time to go to bed. Then it'll play some music to wake you up, and it does sleep tracking in between. But if you set your bedtime, then screen time will also shame you. It's like, hey, you picked up your device after your bedtime that you set. Why were you doing that? So you just kind of can passively, I guess, more passively kind of confront these things, and then maybe they'll make you change, maybe they won't. But I have not activated any of the active features. And I think for me, that's because I'm sort of in this space where it's like, if I can't control myself without these things, then maybe I just don't even need to have the device. Or it's just, I want to prove to myself that I can control my habits there. And I have noticed a significant, or rather not noticed, I've made an active decision to be less active in certain apps and maybe pick up my phone less during the day. But then I have this pesky thing on my wrist that lets me see things too. So who knows how good I'm being.
Well, they say you can't change what you don't measure, right? That's the big
Amen.
CEO,
Yes.
CFO kind of comment about how you affect your behavior or how you affect your organizational behavior. But Joanna Stern had an amazing column on this. She's been testing it for a while. It was in the Wall Street Journal last week. And she said that what she just got in the habit of doing is whenever it told her she'd used enough of the device that she'd set a limit of, say, an hour or what have you, whenever it popped up that you've hit the hour, she just hit ignore. And that she realized it was just annoying her. And she went to see a psychologist, and he said that's because different parts of your brain are at work here. We have the gas and the brakes, right? And we're not so great at the brakes right now when it comes to our devices. And our thinking brain is going to say, I should only use this for an hour. But in that moment, when you get a notification or you get a buzz on your wrist, your lizard brain says, what's going on? And those are two completely different sides of your brain. And so this monitoring is not going to change you unless, as you said, Micah, you actively decide to use it as a tool. And you have to, the thing we suck at most as humans is self-discipline. And so
Yes.
there's no device that's going to make self-discipline happen.
Other than maybe like an electroshock bracelet or something.
Let me circle around back to the first thing you said. Can we all just give an applause for Apple saying that older devices are going to speed up now instead of slowing down with the update? Isn't that like something just to applaud? Like, I mean, really, think about that. They actually wrote it down, which they don't write down how long the battery lasts, but they wrote down that this update is going to speed up the 6S Plus. And that was impressive, Apple. Good job. So no longer are we slowing down phones, so you have to buy the new one. We're going to speed up those old ones for you broke people to.
I don't know if he dropped out and got censored because I think Apple realized he was on a rant. But yes,
and using Memoji.
Yes, Memoji rant got shut down there. But I think you're right. It's good to notice the distinguishing factor here that we're not throttling. We are going to speed up your old phones. So good point.
And as far as the time limit that it gives you, the same thing they did research on the watch, because the watch would tell you to stand, people would ignore it. The watch would tell you to work out, people would ignore it. So the same thing is going to happen with this. I'm most excited because on Tuesdays and Thursdays, my daughter's not allowed to watch YouTube, and I usually have to log into her YouTube to make sure she doesn't do it. So now I can just check her phone and know that she's not doing that. But just a pro tip to people, I set this up for my buddy on when it first came out because he wanted to make an emoji. And then he's like, oh, well, what else does the phone do? A couple of days later, I'm showing him stuff, and I show him the thing. And then Pornhub popped up. I was like, hey, you spent 7 minutes on Pornhub. He's like, what? I was like, you need to check this because this is what it reports. You can find out everything you did, every web page, every site, how long you was on the site. So just be careful with this new update when you're out there trying to share it with people and show them how
Lord
much time
have mercy.
you spend on Instagram. And by the way, Instagram saying they want to help minimize time people spend on the wormhole.
I'm with you there. I think that's hilarious and not true at all. I do want to say I'm a big proponent of another feature that sort of ties into this screen time thing. It's not screen time. It's called Do Not Disturb While Driving. And this feature has actually existed for a while, but it kind of ties into this whole new sort of what we're paying attention to and when we are. And I genuinely think that it can make a difference for folks because what Do Not Disturb While Driving does is depending on how you set it up, you can set it up to manual to where you turn it on. I don't recommend that feature because you won't turn it on. Automatic to where it uses your sensors so that it can tell like when you're in the car and moving, then it's like, oh yeah, you're probably in a car. Or it can use, if you have a Bluetooth stereo system in your car, those have a special profile to let the device know, hey, I'm connecting to a car with Bluetooth, and then it will turn on. In any case, what it does is it completely shuts down any notifications that you get while you're driving. Your phone doesn't even light up. And that's the important thing right there. Because lizard brain that's going, oh, I just got a buzz, I got to see what it is. We have trouble not listening to that lizard brain. We want to listen to that lizard brain. And so if you aren't even presented with any sort of phone lighting up, any of that kind of thing, then you're just less likely to want to go and unsafely use your device while you're in traffic or, driving around or what have you. And I'd like to think that I am like, I'm a good person who would never ever look at my phone ever while I was in the car. But this feature helps make that a reality because I don't do it now, because I don't see that there is a notification. But in the past, it'd be like, oh man, I saw somebody was tweeting at me, someone was sending me a message, someone was trying to call me. I guess when I'm at this red light, I better go ahead and look at those. So I do think that there is some merit to these kinds of features if you let them work, and if they kind of don't even give your lizard brain a chance to operate.
I think that's a really good use of it, and I like that it gives you the option to do that. It'd be nice if some of those things were a little bit more front-loaded so you saw them as you were setting it up. I got to get on that because, I just am so bad. Just while we were sitting here, my watch is going crazy, and I'm like, as a parent, I'm always worried, oh my gosh, what's going on with my kid? And so I'm checking the thing, and just so you guys know, she's making cinnamon bread at home. So emergency dealt with, okay?
When you set up a new device, it does walk you through the driving feature. I feel like that's something that definitely has saved lives. I don't know the stat on that. I don't know checking that, but I know it saved lives. I remember a long time ago, I think it was like the second or third iPhone I had, I was calling customer service, and she's like, oh, do you want to call me back? And I'm like, excuse me? She's like, well, you're driving, right? And I'm like, how do you know I'm driving? I'm looking out the window. And she's like, oh, I can tell by how fast you're moving. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to hang up now, big brother. And they should have had that feature a long time ago. I feel like if nothing else, with it not lighting up is where it helps you. Like if I set my timer for Instagram and I said, no more Instagram after an hour, and it did me like an adult and said, no more Instagram, and I went to go to Instagram and it just wouldn't load until the next time I said, that would help me. But the fact that I can just hit ignore and keep going in doesn't stop me. But that driving feature is vastly important, and I like the fact that they're doing that. And again, when you set up your phone, a new phone, going forward, it should prompt you to that in the setup.
One thing that the screen time features will have that provides that kind of shutdown feature is if you're setting up a phone and you indicate that it's a child's phone, you can get more control now through Apple's internal controls as opposed to a third-party app to shut down YouTube, shut down Instagram or Snap. So the parental controls have been beefed up. They have, again, a nighttime mode so that you can turn it off at certain times. This is a long time coming, and it's kind of embarrassing, I think, that this is just now something that Apple is offering. It has not been something that you can do in the past, and they've made it really difficult for parents. And I think this is going to help. I still think that, the Disney Circle product is probably the best option for parents in terms of shutting things down on a sort of house-wide aspect, because it can control your Xbox, your computers, your phones. If you get the subscription service, it can control your phone when your kid is outside the house.
Oh, wow.
So that, I think, is probably the best option. And granted, full disclosure, I was hosting a panel for them down at Mobile World Congress Americas last week and got to know the features of it a little bit better, and especially their integration with T-Mobile now. But I think that it's kind of surprising to me that Apple's only just getting to these parental controls and that they aren't offering even more of a whole home solution, because this is a major pain point for parents. I mean, everybody I talk to, you go to any party with parents and they're just tearing their hair out about, how much conflict is in their home around gadgets.
How surprised are you when it's dual SIM cards? I mean, come on. It's what Apple does. They wait 4 years to tell you that they invented something that your grandma had, and then they make you feel good about it. That's what Apple does. So, this is what it is.
Yeah. Just back to the screen time. A couple other things I wanted to mention that Google has this. They have the well-being app, so it's not just Apple. And one other thing that I'm seeing in the chat room, you keep mentioning, and I just wanted to circle back on this before we finish all Apple talk. Doctor, you keep talking about dual SIM cards. So my understanding of this one feature that was brought out for the iPhone is that it will allow you to have two phone numbers, one physical SIM card, one eSIM card, except in China where it will have 2 SIM card slots because eSIM cards are illegal there. Anybody have anything they want to add on this? Why this is a value? I don't really totally understand it except for international travel. I mean, you wouldn't, I know most people, like a lot of people that I work with, they have a work phone that's provided by their employer, and then they have a personal phone. And I don't think this solves that problem because you don't want to commingle the data on your phone, right? So any other use cases that I'm not thinking of this for this?
Oh, I was assuming that was the problem being solved. So you're saying like that actually functionally wouldn't work. I guess now that you're describing it, that I see that.
Yeah, I couldn't think of any other reason.
So the way they say it is you're going to be able to know which number and which line are coming in. For my criminal activities, I use my LG G7 ThinQ, which allows me to have T-Mobile digits, so I can have 2 phones on it and additional imaginary SIM. I'm doing air quotes right here, the eSIM or whatever it is. So there's definitely a lot of usage for it. It just depends on what you're using it for. I'm not going to incriminate myself any further, but I'm going to say that it is a useful thing, especially when you just also, okay, so you're Becky, right? You want to go out, maybe you want to talk to somebody, but you want to give them your real number. Wouldn't it be nice to have this backup number that still comes with your cell phone that you could get calls with? You could block them, and it's not your personal number that you've had for 14 years. I mean, there's a whole bunch of case scenarios for it. We don't have time to break it all down right now. If you're looking for some criminal enterprises, just tweet me at @ODoctor. I'll answer in emojis.
That's our next podcast. Clearly, criminal activities for the tech enthusiast.
I'll just agree that this definitely was a head scratcher for me. But I can see, for some folks who, for whatever reason, might need 2 different numbers, then it's available to them. And yeah, I guess if you did a lot of international travel, we talked to Jeremy Burge from Emojipedia on the Clockwise podcast earlier this week, and he had mentioned that he's in the US quite a bit, and the way that our sort of system is set up, it's very difficult to keep a number here without it getting shut down after a while. And so to be able to bounce back and forth between those 2 is very helpful for him. But I've heard a lot of complaints about doing partial eSIM and then the actual physical card, and why Apple didn't just do the one that has 2 physical cards everywhere. And I think it's fascinating because we have this sort of power struggle a little bit between the carriers in the United States and the phone makers in the United States. And to do eSIMs makes it a lot easier for people to switch between carriers, and carriers aren't big on that idea. So the physical SIM makes it a little bit more difficult. And I don't know, Again, I don't do enough switching. I've been on AT&T for a bajillion years, so it doesn't really matter to me.
In the chat room, Trust No One says, if it works like Google's work profiles, the data is separated. 2 of the same apps. One is the work app, one is the personal app, and there's an indicator to tell which one, and the apps are separated in the app drawer as work and personal. But I think if going back to Doctor, he says, if you're trying to kind of really create a wall between those 2 worlds, it doesn't feel that comfortable. So we'll
somebody was trying to explain to me they were using like Xfinity service with Google Fi, and they were using one for data and one for their minutes. And I was like, okay, because they were using T-Mobile digits. And there's a lot of applications for people that want to use it to find a good use for it. That's why they're finally implementing it in 2018.
The chat room also wants me to let everyone know that Doctor is still in Memoji form, and that they've now called this Memoji Babyface Stone this week in criminal activity.
Babyface, I appreciate that. I've been doing some face care. You know what I mean?
I like that.
You got your
looking
skincare
fresh.
routine.
Looking
Nash
fresh.
twice a week. You know what it is.
Yeah. We're going to start a YouTube channel with your skincare routine, get your makeup going.
That's how we do it. Okay, Neutrogena, call me. Call me, Neutrogena.
On that note, we're going to take a break and come back. A really deep look at Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg from The New Yorker, and Evan Osnos, who has a history of really bringing out some details that are surprising. We're going to dig into that after this break. And Leo.
Our show today brought to you by Stamps.com. Love Stamps.com. How many years have we been using this? Must be at least 10. We use Stamps.com because we send stuff out, right? Checks, brochures, mailing stuff. We mail people bobbleheads and fezzes, all sorts of stuff. We mail the host microphone, all that stuff. If you're doing mailing of any kind, you really need Stamps.com. Stamps.com does everything you can do, all the amazing services of the post office at your desk. And I'm not talking a postage meter. You use your computer, your printer, that's it, and the Stamps.com site. You can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail. The mail carrier comes and picks it up. You don't have to get up. Well, maybe you have to get up to open the door, get a cup of coffee, but that's it. I love Stamps.com. It makes you look really professional, too, because it can print right on envelopes. Your logo, your return address automatically filled in. It'll pick up the recipient's address from, your address book, like Outlook or whatever you use. Or if you're a seller like on Amazon or Etsy or eBay, it'll pick it up there, put it on the label. It'll even recommend ways to save money with more affordable mail classes. They send you a digital scale, so you always have exactly the right postage. No more extra stamps just in case. And stamps don't, licking and putting a stamp on, it's nice. It's much nicer with the label and the QR code and everything. It really looks good. And I think the post office likes it because they can process it automatically. It means that your package gets there faster. Click, print, mail, and you're done. No equipment to lease, no long-term commitment, just Stamps.com. Look, you got to do this. Go to Stamps.com. Use Twit for our special offer, and it's very simple. Up in the upper right-hand corner, see the kind of silver radio microphone. Click that. Enter Twit. You'll get up to $55 in free postage. That's nice, right? You get that digital scale I mentioned, a 4-week trial. Don't wait. Do it right now. Stamps.com. Before you forget, you probably already said, "Oh yeah, I should do this like last month." Do it now. Stamps.com. Click the radio microphone at the top of the homepage. Enter Twit. That's Stamps.com, offer code TWIT. Then you never have to get up from your desk again. Look, Becky did not get up from our desk. She's here with the rest of TWIT. Thanks, Becky.
Oh, yeah, I've just been sitting here licking stamps the old-fashioned way. If only I'd had some Stamps.com. I am Becky Worley here this week in tech, and we have one fantastic audience member here. And he has really helpfully informed me. Jatash says that in Asia, a lot of people have dual SIMs because they get better data rates with one carrier, and then they might have better long distance rates depending on what country they call most. And he says 90 to 95% of the people in Singapore and Hong Kong have multiple SIMs just for that reason. So it's so great to have a live studio audience member who can inform me of these important things. Our audience members are always so knowledgeable. That's what's so intimidating for me, filling in for Leo. Is the audience is so amazingly knowledgeable. You just don't want to be a total ding-dong up here. Luckily, I have three great panelists with me. Brian McCullough is here from the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast. Micah Sargent from Mobile Nations. And Dr. Owen J.J. Stone. Anything you want to plug, Dr.?
IQMZ.com has all my podcasts. I did a couple of tech podcasts talking about the stuff we've been talking about this week. So IQMZ.com, that's where you can find me at in the world.
Excellent. Well, we're going to move on to the interface of social media and politics and culture and society, which could fill an entire podcast in of itself. The news, Facebook this week said it's going to use technology and human monitors to look at pictures that contain text that may be fake news or in violation of their policies. In the past, it's been very difficult to report a picture because they didn't have any reporting tools to flag those pictures that fit into any of these categories. And as a result, a lot of the fake news propaganda that's been pushed aside in text form, there has been a rising up of using photos for this. So now they've got optical character recognition and some AI that's going to look at what is being said in text over these pictures to determine if it fits any of the fake news or propaganda that they're trying to squelch on the site. It's called Rosetta, and it's an internal program that just kind of pushes the ball down the hill that says Facebook is looking at this issue. Brian, I know you talked a lot about Facebook's problems in this space and what Mark Zuckerberg wrote as they say they're preparing for the upcoming elections. And I just want to quote a couple things he said in this article in the New Yorker that Evan Osnos wrote. It was basically the concept is, can Mark Zuckerberg fix Facebook before Facebook breaks democracy? And what Zuckerberg said in his post, I'm bringing the same focus and rigor to addressing election interference that I've brought to previous product challenges like shifting our services to mobile. These issues, the election issues, are even harder because people don't agree on what a good outcome looks like or what trade-offs are acceptable to make. And I think this really signifies what he thinks Facebook's job is. Our responsibility is to amplify the good and mitigate the harm. Does he get it, Brian?
Well, actually, what I talked about this week in regards to this piece, I'm gonna take off that and go in a different direction. Specifically the politics stuff. That's what I think this piece illuminates. Is that's the classic engineer's idea that if we just get enough smart people in a room and get some smart math together, we can solve this problem. And so if he's seeing, rightfully so, that the political aspect, the propaganda aspect is a problem that they didn't anticipate, or maybe they should have anticipated, but they didn't do enough to fix at the beginning. What I found fascinating about this New Yorker piece is that I can see that Zuckerberg gets that stuff. Again, it's the engineer's mindset of, oh, you've told me there's a problem. Oh, you told me that this aspect of the product is performing 30% suboptimally. How do we fix it? That sort of thing. What I found fascinating about this New Yorker piece is it's rare. They always trot out CEOs to do these profiles. They don't want to do it. Evan even says at the beginning, you could tell by his body language he didn't want to do it. But it's in aid of saying, we get it, heard you, I'm human, I'm a nice guy, that sort of thing. What I thought that this piece illuminated is Zuckerberg feels like he can solve problems that are brought to his attention that are categorizable, that have metrics and things like that. But I thought that this was an amazing profile, of the best I've seen of Zuckerberg in years, because Evan Osnos took sort of like this authorial position of there's a trope in literature that's about the boy king that's been brought up inside the castle, and now he has to lead, so he has to understand how the outside world actually functions. And I feel like that this piece had a little bit of that, in the sense, or a lot of that really, in the sense that Zuckerberg's not a dumb guy. No one's ever accused him of that. So he's smart enough to realize that he is in a bubble to a certain extent. He created this company in 21, 22. He's been filthy rich, world famous for this whole time that Facebook's been around. There's no one that's hired that he doesn't, sign off on. There's even a quote from Sheryl Sandberg in there where he'll say sometimes in front of the company, well, I've never worked anywhere else, but Sheryl tells me. So Zuckerberg is aware that there are things that he knows he doesn't know, that he knows he doesn't grok is maybe a better way of saying it. The question that this piece in my mind brings out is that enough? I mean, thank God that he's self-aware. Thank God that he knows he needs to learn things outside his bubble. And he's always made a show of trying to improve himself, but also maybe learning what you don't know isn't taking a media crew around the country and going to people's houses and having dinner with them and, posting those photos for, I think that, yes, thank God that they're taking the steps that they're taking to address the political stuff. They're getting out there ahead of it. Let's hope that they're doing all the right things right now. But I thought that this piece was more fascinating because it sort of revealed Zuckerberg's bubble in a way that no piece had done before, especially with the Roman emperor stuff, which I'm going to quit talking now, but if you want, I can come back to that.
I want you to explain that a little bit, because we'll get back to that. He named his daughter August after Augustus, and it really indicates his perception of what his role is in not just society, but in history and in the long scope of history, the future.
This is exactly the point that I made on the show this week. First of all, so there were 70 odd Roman emperors, depending on how you count. There were maybe 4 good ones in terms of like being good, effective rulers. The majority were psychopaths, actual psychopaths. And a lot of them were psychopaths before they became emperor. But a lot of them became psychopaths because they had unlimited power and were basically gods on earth that had, life or death power over everyone in their realms, right? So in a piece where we're trying to say, hey, I'm Mark Zuckerberg, I'm a nice guy, I'm a human, I'm trying to learn the things that I don't know. And also I'm trying to assure the public that, yes, me, this unelected emperor of my quasi-nation state that has 2 billion citizens in it. By the way, I really hero worship the Emperor Augustus, who, aside from Julius Caesar, is really the guy that brought down the Roman Republic. Like,
major disconnect. Didn't land.
Yeah, right.
That's not one that's like, I love Beyonce too. That doesn't really.
He should have done that.
I know, that would have just landed so much better. But, it gives you a sense of the scope that he perceives his role in society, the world, the future, history. And some of the comparative stats that were brought out blew my mind, and maybe he's right. This is a couple things. If Facebook were a country, it would have the largest population on Earth. More than 2.2 billion people, about a third of humanity, log in at least once a month. I think they said at one point that Facebook has as many adherents as Christianity. What?
Okay.
More.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's crazy.
Okay.
And so, he sees himself at this scale, and he might be right. And I would say that, the central issue as he places himself and Facebook in the world and in the political environment that we're in right now is Facebook going to be a decider of truth, or are they going to be a venue for truth to be discussed and what is truth? And I think, what was said that really spoke to me is that, let me see if I can get this quote. It was the central issue about if he had to choose truth. I'm going to find it for you. Hold on a second. The whole Alex Jones, here it is. Between speech and truth, he chose speech. Between speed and perfection, he chose speed. Between scale and safety, he chose scale. And that's the takeaway that Evan Osnos has at the end of this really deep look at Facebook and Zuckerberg and the problems we have right now. I think the deed has been done. There's, I don't know. Is there a fix? Crickets.
I could go again, but I wanted other people to jump in.
I honestly, I don't have much to say on this, because I think that we have reached a place where it's like, what can we do with this site to, or even like with the internet in general, and more importantly with human beings, because I think that we underestimate the level at which I can't think of the term right now, but the level at which we have trouble accepting new ideas, and we have trouble letting those base beliefs and understandings that we have change. And because of that, and we've created this online place where election tampering can happen, because a group can come in and sort of put out these ideas that they know are going to upset a certain group and then also feed into another group. That is because of our evolutionary history and the way that we, going back to the lizard brain, the way that we think. Like, And I have to give so many of these props to Georgia Dow, who's been on This Week in Tech before, because much of this comes from her. She's a psychotherapist. And historically, we lived in these little tribes. And it was very important for us to see what was ours and what was others. And our beliefs and the things that we did, they kept us safe. And the things that others did, we wouldn't want to be a part of those because they wouldn't keep us safe. And at our very base level brain, because we lived so many years like that, we still feel that way. We still think that way. And so it's difficult. It's almost like an actual literal pain for us to change our base beliefs, to be open-minded, to experience change, to be open to new ideas. And we have just created this thing where connections can happen so quickly and to get so many people. And it's like two things that come together at once. We've got all these connections happening and so many people being able to see things all at once. But then we also have this thing where humans aren't realizing that the people behind, these usernames or these profile photos or what have you are actual literal human beings. We have this disconnect. And so all this can come together to let us spill out the most disgusting parts of ourselves and really feel hatred and badness and all of these things. And then we take those and they become a part of us in our daily lives. And we use that to influence how we feel about other people and the way that we think about other people. So if you tuned out onto everything I just said, the TL semicolon DR is, I think that we are not I don't know what it's going to take to fix it, because I think that it's already broken. And I think that until we look at things from a psychological perspective and from a human-centered perspective, we're not going to get anything done.
Totally agree. And I feel like very few people have had their minds changed because of something that was posted on social media. And yet, one counter narrative and an analogy that I can see is that Facebook in the most recent election is like airports and 9/11. And that after 9/11, we changed the security in our airports because we wanted to we couldn't change everything with that, but at least we could stop weaponizing planes. And so are these steps to change Facebook and to, downrank things that are perceived of as fake news or polarizing, is that the equivalent of trying to make social media less weaponized? And is it at least worth fighting the fight? And I think the answer is yes. Does it solve all the problems? Absolutely not. Should they have been aware in advance? Probably. But here we are, and you got to do something. And whether or not he's going to do enough is the question. And this profile left me uncertain. I know why he did what Facebook did in the past, but I don't know what they're going to do in the future.
But see, this brings me back to the whole concept of Zuckerberg is aware that he's in a bubble of his own making, that he's hired the team that he wants, he's making the product that he wants. So the question is he the qualified, in a weird way, is he the qualified person to make those changes if seemingly he's not capable of being aware of how these things work on, for lack of a better word, normal people? You know what I mean? Like Ben Thompson in Stratechery wrote this week that his concern is not that Zuckerberg believes that Facebook is a force for good, or rather that he probably maybe doesn't even consider that it might not be a force for good. You know what I mean? Like he refuses to maybe even allow himself to go there. When you were talking about that quote of choosing scale over safety, truth over speech over truth, right? Yeah. So Osnos finishes that by saying that at a certain point, the habits of mind that serve Zuckerberg well on his ascent will start to work against him. So far, he's convinced himself he can solve problem after problem, no matter the howling the public may cause. But, and this is the key point, Osnos says that Zuckerberg's going to have to embrace the fact that he's now a protector of the peace, not a disruptor of it. And I'm bringing it back to that being the boy king analogy. If you're William the Conqueror and you take over England in 1066, great, you've moved fast and broken things. But then what the people that you now rule want you to do is not break a bunch of other stuff. They want you to bring them peace and prosperity. So does he have the mindset and the tools to win the peace, to make us all feel comfortable and and wealthy and profitable and happy, as opposed to, hey, here's a new feature that can do this thing that you never thought of? Like, in a way, the skill set that Facebook and Zuckerberg have to have now is keeping us fat and happy, not like wowing us with new stuff, maybe.
And I think one thing that underscores that point is a piece of news that came out this week about Alex Jones and all of his channels being taken down from the various social media platforms and the iTunes store, which was basically that Mark Zuckerberg admitted that they weren't sure what to do, and it wasn't until Apple pulled all of Alex Jones' material out of the podcast and iTunes store that Facebook felt like, okay, now we can do it. And maybe to your point, what this says is that they're not leaders and they can't lead on this. And I just don't know who's going to help them. Are they going to follow Apple? Who are they going to follow?
Brendan, I read on the podcast, Brendan Nyan tweeted that the problem is too many tech types fail to differentiate between technical problems and social challenges that can't be engineered away. And he says that Bill Gates has moved up the learning curve on this, but most of his colleagues have not. Like, it could be, so how long has Sheryl been there? At least a decade, right? And Facebook's 15 years old almost? There was a time when they shook things up at Microsoft. There was a time when Bill Gates took a step back and handed the reins to Steve Ballmer, which we know how that didn't go so well. But
you could say, you could also point to Travis Kalanick and Uber and him pulling back and bringing a kinder, softer, more.
Is this the time for Facebook to do a real shakeup, bring in some new blood and like literal generational blood again? Facebook's almost 15 years old. How old is Zuckerberg now? He was born in 84. If maybe bring in, and this might even aid them in terms of people, young people don't use the main Facebook app anymore. They're using Instagram for sure. But so maybe bring in some young blood, bring in a new generation. Again, I'm using Microsoft as an example. They did that stuff, especially in the 90s. They brought in that Generation X generation that came in after the Gateses and the Ballmers and stuff that ran things in the 90s. And maybe this is that time for Facebook.
With that, we are going to take a quick break and come back to discuss. There was other news this week besides Apple and Facebook. We had a little bit of Google news and some really interesting decisions on policy that may affect us all and how the internet works. So we're going to hear from Leo and be right back.
I always love doing the Blue Apron ads on Twit because I always go home after Twit and make dinner. And we get Blue Apron every week, so that usually is 3 meals a week, almost always Sunday after Twit. I get to cook a great meal. And I love it because I've been busy all day doing shows. I don't have to shop. I don't have to meal plan. I just get home. I've already picked what we're going to get from Blue Apron. On the website, they have a menu with 12 new recipes every week. Always innovative and interesting. So it's, actually the hard thing is, that one or that, that looks good. Pick 2, 3, or 4 for every week. So we get 3 a week. I get home, it's there. It's ready to go. It's like I have a sous chef. Exactly the right pre-portioned ingredients. Fresh. I've never seen better looking produce and meat. It's fantastic. It's seasonally inspired. And the recipe card's right there. 45 minutes after I get home, it's going to be done. And everybody's going to be so happy because it fills the house with this amazing smell. It's so fun to cook for your family. It's a great help with back to school, kids love it, by the way. Cook with your kids in Blue Apron. They're doing the meal prep for you. It's like having a little sous chef in a box. Blue Apron offers a range of recipes, all of them, I promise you, bursting with flavor, Whether you're looking for a quick and easy meal or a full culinary cooking experience, you get to choose on the website. There are a huge range of options. Do check out I love this, their menu for chef-designed recipes, and they do these partnerships that make it fun. There's always something new, like the Bob's Burger inspired crispy chicken tenders and mashed potatoes with butter, lettuce, and ranch dressing, or pasta and creamy tomato sauce with summer vegetables. What are you cooking tonight? It ought to be Blue Apron. It'll be the best meal ever. Check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals free. BlueApron.com/twit. BlueApron.com/twit for your first 3 meals free. And get cooking. You're going to, it smells so good. I can smell it right now. BlueApron.com/twit. Blue Apron's a better way to cook. Back to Becky Worley and This Week in Tech.
A couple times ago when I was on Twit with Leo was here hosting. After the show, we went and he and Lisa made dinner for my family and I, and they are good cooks. So I have to say, Blue Apron, liking it. Got some bad news. Doctor lost power. Somebody hit a power pole near his house. No power. Power's out. So one of you guys is going to have to step up and be the ranting guest. So just pick your rant, whatever you need to do. If you need a Memoji for it, that's fine.
Yeah, right. Let me get that going.
I gotta lose my perky morning television, Good Morning America persona and get my rant on if I'm going to step in for the great Doctor. But there was other news this week. A couple interesting things. I want to talk a little bit about Alphabet's Project Loon. This is Google Alphabet's project to use balloons to create wireless networks. Passed a big milestone this week. They used 7 balloons in the stratosphere. They spread out a signal over 620 square miles. The idea is not super new. They're bringing wireless data to areas that don't have the infrastructure to create good data networks. And Facebook has done this before. There have been planes and solar-powered planes where people thought they could do this to create internet access in places where it's limited. We always think of, everybody has internet. Not so much. And where I think this is really interesting is that Project Loon was deployed in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, and they had to get an FCC temporary license to go in and provide this. They worked with T-Mobile and Verizon. And, as we're watching the Hurricane Florence hit the Carolinas right now, really interesting uses of technology going on. We've seen Nextdoor, the social network for neighborhoods, be incredibly powerful for people who have emergency needs. And it's amazing how people do manage to keep connected, and that whether they have a cell signal or somehow still have Wi-Fi in some way, shape, or form, it does happen, even in these major storms. Another one that's really interesting, I was listening to Zello. Have you guys ever used that before?
No, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It can work with incredibly low bandwidth on your cell signal, and it's kind of like a CB radio where they have channels that are articulated for topics. So they have a bunch of different Hurricane Florence channels, including one for the Cajun Navy, where people were monitoring, and if you need help and can sign on to the app, you can state your location and ask for information to be relayed to 911 if you, for some reason, can't reach 911.
Right. I actually think that it was last year's hurricane cycle that app really took off, like in Texas. If I remember correctly, if I'm talking about the exact same app,
you're right.
Like that's when it took off, was the last big hurricane
with the push-to-talk functionality, right?
Yeah, it's just like that. And I mean, the thing is these 911 dispatches get totally overwhelmed, or people don't have the ability to call. And so these low bandwidth apps actually are really helpful as they're trying to communicate with other people. It's called Zello. And then another one that was from, I think it was Harvey as well, Brian, it's called Crowd Rescue. And this lets people who need to be rescued, a lot of times it's the slow rising waters and people are trapped, and then they can put their location on them, and they can indicate where they are, and then volunteers who have boats or trucks or whatever can try and get at them. And so it's one of those places where you see technology and free markets and the existing sort of device infrastructure that we have working when you can't rely on, there's just not enough first responders to help everybody. So it's always good as we rant to talk about something good.
Yes.
Feature idea for the iPhone 2020, as I'm calling it, is a flare that shoots out. You maybe only have one or two, but like since we don't have the headphone jack anymore or whatever, like put another little hole in there and it shoots out a flare if you're in danger.
Well, I'll tell you.
And if you turn on parent mode, then the kid wouldn't be able to access that feature.
Right, exactly. That could be a disaster, right? Or if it's the Galaxy Note, it shoots the pen out and the pen explodes.
right. That's what I was exactly. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But there is one interesting thing that I wondered about, and I know this sounds crazy, but have you guys? That Fire Chat is another app that it came out of Burning Man, I think, where there was so much pressure on the cell signals that you couldn't actually get a message through. So it created these mesh networks through Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connecting up to other phones who had the app running, and they relayed messages to other people in the network. And I thought, man, I wonder what it would take. And I mean, I'm sure it has major security issues, but for that to be built into the operating systems, that you could somehow create a mesh network if you wanted to with other phones without having to be a pre-installed app. Because that's the thing about this is like, who pre-installs an app for when you're in a disaster and you lose connectivity?
You don't think about it.
Yeah, so that you can talk to your neighbor or whatever. But
there's already some of that sort of close-up functionality that exists between your iPhone and your Mac and your iPad, and how they can all communicate with each other using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, direct connect stuff. So
AirDrop,
it wouldn't be
right.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you had sort of like AirDrop chat where everyone could work together in those kinds of situations, I think that's a pretty cool idea. And Apple being so focused on encryption and security, I imagine they'd figure out a way to try and make that happen without there being those security issues.
One more little weather item that I thought was kind of interesting is the Weather Channel did an amazing graphic, 3D graphic showing what the water rising numbers actually mean in real life. So hopefully we'll have this posted, but it's on Wired posted it. It's also in the Weather Channel's Twitter feed. But basically they have this entire green screen room, and they did an animation. It's like if you scroll forward to like a minute into the animation, it shows the meteorologist standing, kind of doing like a standard, here's where the rain's going to come. But then it's like a carved out semicircle around her. And the backdrop is this 3D graphic of a car and a street and a house and trees. And you see the water rising behind her, and you realize the scope.
Scary.
I mean, it's like the day after kind of scary. You realize, wow, the power of water. I just thought, as we look at the power of video, this is such a fantastic example of showing and not telling. And it makes us realize how much more potential we have to tell stories.
And there's going to be a lot more of that, because I did a whole segment on this as well. And so first of all, how did they do it? They're using Unreal Engine, so which makes sense if you watch it. It's actually like, yeah, that kind of does look like my favorite role-playing game.
Right, gaming technology.
But then also, so the Weather Channel has invested, they only have the one studio now, but they've invested a whole bunch of money into creating more things like that. They have a special studio with all the fancy motion tracking stuff, to make Gollum and things like that, and the green screens and all that stuff. And they're apparently going to roll out over the next several months or years or whatever, many more of these. They wanted to get this one ready for the hurricane season. And they want to do, because that's their whole point, is not only, I think it's been viewed 10 million times on Twitter already, not only is it really compelling television, but, I'm a Florida native. So I've dealt with hurricanes every year for my whole life. And the whole idea is you always get those people that are like, well, I'm not leaving. Well, okay, here's what a 10-foot storm surge actually would do to your neighborhood. And they're going to do more of these for things like how quickly a fire can move through a canyon or something like that. So the whole idea is when people are watching these weather or natural disaster events happen and they're not really sure how seriously to take it, they're trying to make people take it more seriously. And I think it's fantastic.
I agree that this is like, hey.
We got Dr. back. Yay.
Hey. Yeah, somebody hit a poll. Apple tried to shut me down, but can't nobody shut me down. I'm back. So that being said, that's really cool. Graphics is really useful. But I remember the day when Anderson Cooper was sitting in a ditch, pretending like it was 4 feet more water than it was. Just the other day, we had that guy who was bracing himself against the wind with people walking behind him. So that's why people don't leave their homes. That's why people stay there, because they can't trust the media. I'm doing air quotes again, because they do silly stuff like that to play up storms. And sometimes there is a real danger and you need to run for your life, but it's not every storm. It's not all the time. So as cool as that is, as good as that is, you know, somebody's going to be sitting at home. Well, that's fake water and that doesn't look real to me. It's just a wind. Now, this guy right here, this is why people stay in their houses, because they watch stuff like this and they're like, really, bro, what are you doing? And if you can find a clip of Anderson Cooper, I know it's 10 years old, but this dude is literally, he walked down the hill, stood in a ditch with waiters, did an interview talking about how everything was flooding when literally it was maybe up to his ankles.
Okay, the guy that was in the wind, okay, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here because I don't know the backstory, but I'm just thinking maybe he's not fit. Maybe those like strapping gentlemen who were walking behind him were able to
Or also
withstand.
he's going to a place where he's in the wind tunnel. Like having been through hurricanes before, like if you're around a wall and you see the wind, you're standing up, but then there is wind long enough or strong enough to knock me down, and I'm not a small guy either, and I've seen it.
I've been to Chicago. I know what the hawk is. I know what dying in my heart is, okay? But that video right there, ain't no wall, ain't no corner. There's only opportunity and air between those two guys. So I don't want to hear nothing about no strapping, nothing about no nothing. So again, there's going to be people sitting at home. Johnny, look at the TV. They got fake 9-foot water going up there telling me I'm going to drown. That's not even real water, Johnny. just letting you know. And then look at Anderson Cooper. Look at that. And that's why people stay in their homes. That's why people don't leave, because they don't believe that the storm is as bad as they say it's going to be. And enter at your own risk. I'm leaving. I don't care what it is. I'm not staying.
Anything we can do to spread the message on proper disaster preparedness. When the Hurricane Lane was heading towards Hawaii, my parents live on Maui, and I was trying to convey to my parents that they needed to be prepared. And there had been discussion of 3 weeks of supplies, and after Puerto Rico, everybody was freaking out. And I said to my mom, how do you feel about your preparedness? And she said, oh, I'm good. I just got some bottles of water. They're in the garage. And I talked to my dad, and he said, we have 2 6-packs of Dasani in there. Is that what she's talking about?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
And one more thing real quick, because I got power outages when I was going to say it. Zuckerberg can't fix that kind of stuff, and he gonna mess up my memes. That's all I'm saying. Memes aren't meant to be real. It's supposed to be fake news and jokes. So they go in there searching these words and messing up my memes. We gonna have a problem. That's all I'm saying back on that last story. But you keep going with the weather.
I'm glad you brought up memes, because we're going to take a very short break, and then we're going to come back and talk about how the EU is really trying to mess up your memes, Doctor. So, Leo, get us through this, and then we'll get back to it.
Becky, what do you do to secure your passwords, huh? All of you. I hope you're not using monkey123, or a lot of people I know, I won't name names, like will use a combination of their initials, their kid's birth date, their dog's name, and call it a day. And then they use it for every site with maybe modifications, maybe not. This is not secure. You know this. And maybe you do better, but can I tell you something? Your employees are doing that right now. And that's why you need Lastpass Enterprise for your business. It's why we use Lastpass Enterprise. You're giving your employees the keys to the kingdom. You need a little bit of security, a little help. Lastpass is the password vault that protects you best at home and at work. According to one survey, 32% of employees share passwords with others. And by the way, not just the person sitting at the desk across from them, people at home. Yeah. You got to protect yourself. What are you doing to ensure those passwords are being shared appropriately? Well, LastPass Enterprise. It makes password sharing easy for employees, but keeps access to corporate data secure. It even allows for full customization of access. Like you could set master password requirements, so no more monkey 123. Enables password resets, so because employees inevitably they'll forget, but you have control of all of this. And by the way, if an employee leaves or no longer needs access to get their work done, you can easily revoke access to a password. They don't even see the password in some cases. Generally, this is what we do. They don't see the password. They just get a button to click to log on to the site. It fills in the password. All they see is dots, so they can't share it. They can't tell anybody else. They don't even know it themselves. I love that. LastPass has over 100 policies, access security reports. You can create shared folders. We use it for everything: database logins, SSH keys, software licenses, other important business information. At home, I use it for my driver's license, credit cards, social security number. Everything's in LastPass because I trust it. Everything in LastPass is fully encrypted. No one has access, even LastPass, only you. Only you. And with the LastPass Authenticator app, you get multi-factor authentication. This is really nice. Actually, they have many ways of doing two-factor. But the LastPass app is nice. Employees like that because they don't have to copy a 6-digit number or anything. A verification button pops up on the employee's phone, and that guarantees that only they are accessing this resource. That's very nice. Even if credentials are compromised or given away or shared, having that multi-factor authentication means outsiders don't have access, only authorized employees. And, of course, the password generator, which makes sure that you're always using strong passwords and you don't have to write them down because LastPass remembers them for you. And if you use Microsoft's Active Directory, you don't even have to remember the LastPass password. You can use your AD credentials to log in. So really, then that's it. That's everything. Your employee. This is so good for business. We've been using LastPass Enterprise for years. I've been using LastPass Personal for years. In fact, almost 10 years. LastPass celebrated their 10th anniversary in July. Isn't that awesome? From easy onboarding to password autofill, LastPass makes it easy for businesses to take control of passwords, reduce the threat of breach. You need this for your business. And it's very affordable. Go to lastpass.com/twit. Choose from LastPass Premium for personal use. LastPass Families, that's what I use at home. Makes it easy to share passwords, have emergency access for spouses, things like that. LastPass Teams for teams of 50 or fewer, or what we use at work, LastPass Enterprise. Well, I believe in LastPass so much that we actually give it as a benefit of employee to our employees for their personal use as well. And it integrates very nicely with the enterprise. I just think it's that important. I think you need to use it. LastPass.com/twit. More than 13 million people trust LastPass, including me and Steve Gibson. It's the #1 most preferred password manager. LastPass.com/twit. Have I convinced you? I hope so. And now back to Becky Worley as we wrap up this week's Twit. I'll be back next week. See you then.
We will indeed see you then, Leo. In your absence, though, it has been a great week on Twit. Let's take a look.
Previously on Twit.
Oh, we got mail from Leo. He's been sending us postcards. You get one.
These are so cool.
On this one, he says, please tell Rich that he answered all of those questions wrong on the tech guide.
Oh. Thank you. Appreciate that, Leo.
Say that.
Is this where you're listening, Leo?
Tech News Weekly.
There's the iPhone XS, XS Max, XR. Although I want to say XS, the entire
I was going to
time.
compliment you on your proper pronunciation of these ridiculous
He
names.
has it written out.
Let me just say I have it actually written out in words so that I wouldn't mess it up. That's the only way that I could do it properly.
Yep.
What about the Apple Watch 4? Obviously, this was a big redesign.
I think this was the most interesting product in some ways. It's got that big screen going all the way out to the edges. That's going to change how app developers write for it.
The new screensavers.
Richard Butler is here. He is from DP Reviews. Canon has jumped on the full-frame mirrorless bandwagon with the Canon EOS.
taking out that mirror means that you can move the mount much closer to the sensor. Canon tells us that putting a large glass element very close to the sensor allows you to create all sorts of lens designs they couldn't with their DSLR system. And Nikon is saying very much the same thing. They've taken the same approach.
Do you have a preference between the Nikon and the Canon? I don't know. I'm very competitive.
All these controversial questions.
I know.
All fighting words.
Something has to win, always. That's my way.
Twit. Hey, G4. Ha, 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 ha.
Becky Worley here, back on Twit. And I was just checking Twitter, and my handle is @bworley. Follow a sister. That helps me out. And Lich MD had a comment about the dual SIMs. He says, I've had a personal line and a Google Voice line for business for close to a decade. I've carried 2 phones to support this for years, and now with dual SIMs on the Apple phone XS, I can carry 1 phone and answer text, etc. on both. And, it's a good example. He's a small business owner, so he's not worried about Big Brother, the employer, checking in on all his stuff. He just wants to carry 1 phone but have 2 numbers. Makes a lot of sense. We are joined by Micah Sargent, Brian McCullough, and Dr. Owen J.J. Stone. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. And this is kind of exciting news in policy, but I'm a big policy fan because I think changes only happen with markets, free markets, with government policy, and occasionally with grassroots. Maybe I'm a little bit fatalistic in my thinking, but when a policy change happens, I think it's worth paying attention. So this one is from the EU. The European Parliament has voted to pass a copyright directive, and the 2 that are in contention are Article 11 and Article 13, the hyperlink tax and the upload filter. So I'll quickly hit the hyperlink tax because we don't need to get into that too much, although it does impact business. It would require companies to pay news outlets for hosting their content on the platforms. Basically, if you have a hyperlink, that's okay. But if you excerpt significant portions of the text, sites like Facebook, Google, Twitter could be forced to pay those companies for the content. And, I think Megan and Jason were speaking with a guy from the EFF earlier this week, and he basically just said, the E is doing this because they're super mad. That was his exact quote. At Google, Facebook, and Twitter. They're super mad. And it's because they're not getting any revenue from these companies. And this is one of the ways that they can imagine bringing revenue back into European companies, media companies who are, as all media companies are, suffering from sharing, it could be said. Now, this is the one that's interesting. And, Doctor, this is the one that's messing with your meme. This is the meme killer. It would require these big companies to automatically, anyone who has user-generated content, to automatically filter copyrighted material, songs, images, videos, unless it has been specifically licensed. Now, we know this exists already. You probably have seen this when, certainly for us here at Twit, when we podcast, we upload material that might have a song or a video or something that's copyrighted. It goes up onto YouTube, and YouTube takes it down because they have AI that recognizes the algorithmic signature of the material and therefore can say, hey, that's copyrighted, and they don't own the copyright. But this has a ton of issues when it comes to fair use. This could be a big deal if it passes. It's not meant, it wouldn't go into play until 2019, but this is a big deal if it goes in, as we've seen with GDPR.
Like it only has one more vote. Like everything I read about it's a done deal essentially. And then there's a complication where each individual EU country can implement it in different ways. So it's not, it doesn't even have the advantage of it being one single law that you have to follow. But the key part about this is, so if you're thinking, well, this doesn't affect me, I'm not a YouTuber, I'm not going to upload well, this could affect you posting an animated GIF or whatever to a Facebook post, to an Instagram, to Twitter, and the key part about it is unless I haven't read any piece that says this is possible. Everything I've read says that the only way that they can do this is to put the filter in front right? So you could have a scenario where someone says something funny on whatever platform you want, and you want to respond with a funny Futurama animated GIF, but whatever platform you post to would have to run it through the algorithm before it could post it, right? And if they reject it, they say, oh, this is not, and then you would get all sorts of problems where it's like, but this is fair use. I'm just posting this is just a joke or whatever, and then the political implications of having those filters. So it is potentially quietly like a huge story.
And the fact that it's going to be implemented differently in different countries doesn't really matter. I always think of it like a three-legged race, because when we're doing things at a global scale, whomever has the most restrictive policies, you have to adhere to that globally. Right.
Exactly. That's the big thing there, that, people might go, oh, well, here in the U.S., Twitter's going to be okay. We'll still be able to do what we want to do in the United States. But if the company is going to go through this entire policy change and implement these tools and set this up, you have to, because you would be communicating with people potentially from the countries where this is a law, and you can't have it work in some places and work in others. And so it is kind of scary in the sense that it will change I think it'll change communication on the web in many ways. I don't see any other thing happening. Like, this is going to happen, right? We've seen that these laws, like you said, it's pretty much through. There's
one more vote in January, but everything I read this week says that it's a done deal. It's going to pass. This part of it already passed 438 to 266 against, so it wasn't close or anything.
Potential ramifications. Do you have any perception of how this might impact things if it has the effect that we think it might?
I mean, the EFF says that this could kill meme culture, essentially. Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
Look, first of all, if I was in the EU, I worry about Facebook, Twitter, everybody blocking me from not sharing my sites before you trying to get money out of me spreading the business. Secondly, memes are a very crucial part of my bank account. I make a lot of money with memes, so if they shut down my memes, we're gonna have a problem.
How?
Well, this is why I'm saying quietly, this is a big deal.
Do you know, first of all, Kim Kardashian is Kim Kardashian because she was a meme before memes were memes, okay? So when things happen, Drake has a song out. The song sucks. One kid does a dance to it. The whole world's got a hashtag, do the Shiggy dance. So you think you're going to stop? Okay, let's say they stop it. The traffic will take such a hit from viral things not going around the web that all these companies are going to be like, look, what official we got to pay off to rewrite this law? So go ahead and change it. It ain't gonna last long. The wave of traffic that memes and jokes and using the I want that Futurama, take my money, like that stuff helps the internet. It helps all these sites.
Yeah, but Doctor, ironically, that's the whole point, is that the EU says it's doing this to protect the artists. So what you just described with Drake, ironically, they would be taking down those memes in order to protect Drake and theoretically give him more money. Drake might not think so, because Drake's a modern guy that's like, the game has changed. This is how I get publicity. But ironically, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to set up this regime to protect the artists and to protect copyright holders.
I watched the government sit there and tell Jack Dorsey that people are selling opioids on Twitter and he needs to stop it. And that's what's the problem with the world of opioid addiction. And he didn't want to talk about doctors writing prescriptions falsely for people like they're candy and all the other things that are wrong. The rules and regulations for pharmaceutical companies. He wanted to put it at Jack Dorsey's footstep on Twitter for the opioids selling on Twitter. That's what those people are stupid. They don't understand how the internet works and what's going on and how things flow. So again, go ahead and make that law. Everybody in the world is going to tell you, I'm not selling as many albums as I have. People aren't searching my old movie from 1976 because it somehow became popular again because some kid found it with his dad's DVD collection. Like, oh, I'm so upset about this. If it happens, again, it's going to personally affect my bank account, and that's going to be a problem. Memes got to live forever, but I feel like if they do shut them down, they're going to be right back. Memes going to be back in like a year. Memes can't never die.
Brian, you said that this would only work if they filtered it on the front side. And I'm just thinking of the lag that would cost.
That's what I'm saying. Like, talk about discouraging you from doing something. So what if, and that's the whole point of posting great GIFs, is you're like, oh, I hate it when I think 30 seconds later of the perfect GIF to post, because then someone will beat you to it, or you know what I mean. So like imagine a scenario where somebody posts something and you've got the perfect response, and you're scrolling through, and you submit it, and then you get a little notification, submitted for review.
So gross. I hate it. I hate this idea.
I'll tell you the exact what you're talking about. So Apple does the video where they're showing the basketball tracking with the hoop, the guy shooting and going in the net, right? I posted a meme of a kid crossing over his grandmother in the driveway. She falls over. I said, perfect case use. You get to track the motion of the basketball player, and grandma gets life support from the Apple Watch Series 4. And it got 39 hearts and 17 retweets. They couldn't live without me in these streets. They need tweets like me. They need gifts like me. I block off the EU. Ain't nobody going to England no more. Ain't nobody.
But that's the question. Do you think this will spur segmentation? Is there any way that would be a technological response to this? I mean, I just don't see how that works.
This is the only thing to me that has ever come close, because we had the privacy regulations that got put into place, and it makes sense. Wow.
It did make sense. It made sense.
It didn't make sense, but it did make sense that we sort of made those a more universal thing. There were some companies, and to this day, that still don't have the exact same availabilities in the US that you have in other countries to download your data. But for the most part, these companies were like, we're already doing this. Let's just go ahead and do it everywhere. This is something that everybody does want. This judgment goes against Tumblr culture, Twitter culture, Facebook. It goes against all of these cultures. Tumblr. Yeah, Tumblr would be gone. I mean, Tumblr's kind of already had some trubs now that's with Yahoo. But the point is, all of these places exist because of those things, and the way that we communicate with each other online using these different forms of media, it goes against not just these companies, but the users that are using these platforms. And so this would be the thing that I could actually see being a segmentation. We know you're in the UK now, so you can't send out any animated images while you're here, because they all literally come from someplace somewhere. And you're everybody now has to hire a lawyer so they can make copyright fair use claims. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
well, I'll give one more example, because this is the one that I read when this was first being talked about this summer. The World Cup was going on. So let's imagine this scenario. The World Cup's going on. 1 billion people are watching in real time, and Ronaldo falls on his butt, and it's hilarious, right? And so you want to go to Reddit immediately and find that GIF. Well, so that sort of immediacy could be completely killed, because maybe eventually FIFA would say, okay, it's fine to use that 3-second clip, but someone as powerful as FIFA, theoretically Facebook and Reddit and Twitter and everyone would have to go get permission first before they could even allow it on their platform.
And those kind of organizations just don't move at that speed. So the moment is gone, and I think this is, GDPR at least was medicine that we knew we should probably take. And these companies were like, oh, we don't want to do it, but if we have to do it, we'll do it. This just seems like a spanking for something that you didn't actually do, or that doesn't really make sense.
You don't want.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, EU, you're dead to me. And anybody want to open up a VPN site out there and make that guapole, go right ahead. Because we cutting off everything. Y'all can't tweet. Y'all can't Facebook. Y'all can't nothing. We shutting it all down. Mean forever. Mean gang. Mean.
There's going to be a revolt, huh? They'll be cut off from all the big sites, and they'll let their ministers of parliament know that this wasn't a good one. I want to go to one other three-legged race that's kind of interesting. California is going to put into law State Bill 327. This is the Internet of Things Security Bill. And the idea is that it's going to force IoT makers to put in basic security measures. We know that it's the Wild West out there for IoT devices. If the device uses a default password, the password has to be unique to each device. That's kind of interesting. Or it has to prompt users to set up their own password when they set it up for the first time. Couple of different other security elements. But again, going back to the three-legged race, the the paradigm for this is the California Air Resources Board passing the smog law, which forced car makers to reduce emissions, and that really set in motion a nationwide and eventually improved global air quality standards because California started it. And if you're going to sell to California, you might as well make all your products that way. So, I think this is just another good example of policy having an impact. We don't have to talk about that one. There's a couple other things. This is kind of my take it or leave it section where you guys can decide if you want to talk about this or not. Google Pixel 3 event will take place October 9th. Pixel 3? Anybody? Going to happen in New York, France?
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see all the stuff that Apple's going to announce next year that they stole from the Pixel. So watching the Pixel event lets me know what Apple's going to be doing next year when they roll out their same pitch that they've been doing for the last 7 years.
So this is This is sort of related, but my wife is completely, she's still on a 5C. She doesn't want a bigger phone. So she has announced she is off Apple. And so I told her to watch this event. I've been pushing the Pixel because even though there's not a lot of small Android phones out there, I feel like if she could get the smaller, cheaper Pixel, that might satisfy her need for a pocketable small phone.
Cool. All right. Next in my take it or leave it round, Google says it's going to discontinue the email app Inbox. I haven't used this very much, but just the news that it was going away, I went and checked it out. It's pretty sleek. Most of the features are now in Gmail, but Inbox itself is going to go away. Take it or leave it, gentlemen.
People get really sad about their email apps going away. I remember using Mailbox all those years ago. And when Mailbox got shut down, it was heartbreaking. And I've seen some people being sad about Inbox going away. I understand, like you get used to using something each day. And particularly when it's different, it's not as if you can just hop into something new and it does the exact same thing for you. These are typically designed in a different way and are interesting and you get used to them. And then it's like, oh, I just have to go back to the default mail app. What am I going to do? So I feel your pain if you're losing Inbox, and hopefully the way that Gmail is designed now works for you. But in any case, I'm pouring one out with you. So sorry, Inbox.
All I can say is, who moved my cheese? So hard change.
The way the new Chrome update is really buggy for me right now. I don't know if it's for anybody else, but Google, you got so much money. Why are you making nerds sad? This is like for people that are nerds. My timeline was flooded with people crying and wanting to stab Google in the back. That's what they do.
Yeah, but listen, if you're a nerd, you should know by now, Google will kill every product that you love. They will buy the company, they'll keep it going for 5 years, and then they'll kill it.
They ain't nothing but a bad girlfriend, just breaking your heart. They come back talking like they sweet. The next thing you know, they stab you back. I know that's what Google do, but stop it, Google. Leave me something. I still use Thunderbird email. Thunderbird ain't never going to die because Mozilla
So do I.
Don't do that. Yeah, see, yeah, Thunderbird. Shout out to the Thunderbird crew. I got emails from right? I got emails from 08. I ain't never get rid of Thunderbird. I log in every month, back up my stuff, and then log back offline. Thunderbird for life.
They own you, doctor.
If they
take it or leave it.
Down, I'll cry.
Take it or leave it round continues. Jack Ma stepping down from Alibaba. Business story? Does this impact technology in general? Do we care?
I mean,
Does he deliver stuff?
Yeah, it's an e-commerce thing. I mean, it's epochal in the sense that he was the first of this modern generation of Chinese internet entrepreneurs to really crack it and make it big. So like he's retiring earlier than Bill Gates retired to do philanthropy. He says he wants to do philanthropy like Bill Gates does. So hey, God bless.
All right.
Yep.
Go for it.
There you go.
Ikea has decided to get into the gaming market. They want to create a chair for you to game in. And the way they're going to make it special is they're going to 3D scan your butt. And then they're going to make you a chair that is perfectly contoured to every dimple and every shape distortion of your tush. Is this the sign that the apocalypse is upon us?
No, not at all. This is fantastic. I think this is such a great idea. People sit in chairs all day, every day. They sit on stools. There's so many uncomfortable chairs out there. This one is personally designed for me, and I'm going to feel comfortable in it. Like there's so many issues with folks who don't know sort of posture, the necessary posture for sitting at a desk, and where their arms should be, where the screen should be. If we can provide some form of relief by providing this perfectly shaped, perfectly contoured stool on which to sit, I think it's fantastic. So I think this is the opposite of the apocalypse. This is like, as we improve in these new technologies that we're using, like 3D printing, we can make things more custom for individuals and more personalized. And so then they're less likely to get thrown away. They're less likely to not be something that we want. They're less like this was literally made for me and for my tuchus. And it is the modern sitting on a scanner in the office and having your butt scanned out.
AskJet 2000.
Yes.
This is $1 billion business. Okay, first of all, when I'm on my bicycle, when I'm on my spin machine, when I make my own bar called It Fits You Great, and I have like 4 or 5 different butt sets, and you can find your perfect butt seat to sit up at the bar on the stool. You know, when you sit at the stool, it sucks, but if it felt your butt, oh, it'd be great. Man, this is a great idea. I can't wait to get my butt seat customized and made for me. I might get it in my car. Oh, imagine a customized butt seat for your vehicle. This is ingenious, ingenious.
You guys have any other take it or leave topics that you wanted to discuss? Did we hit everything that we need to talk about for this week in tech?
I think we did.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it has been a true pleasure. Brian McCullough is joining us from the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast. He is the author of How the Internet Happened, a book that's coming out in October. Where can people find you if they want to follow your work, Brian?
Subscribe to the Tech Meme Ride Home podcast. I do it every weekday, drops at 5 p.m. Eastern. Brian MCC on Twitter. And yes, the book comes out October 23rd, How the Internet Happened.
Micah Sargent is a podcaster, a professor of shower dining. I'm going to definitely try an orange in the shower at his suggestion.
Yes.
And senior editor at Mobile Nations. Where can we find you, Micah?
If you're looking for me online, you can find me on Twitter at Micah Sargent. If you want to check out any of the links to the things I do, you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee. I appreciate whoever is producing the show because they already had the site up, and I adore you. That's my site for links to all the things I do. So head there and check that out.
Why Chihuahua Coffee?
Well, I have 2 Chihuahuas that I love very much, and I'm a big coffee drinker. And my boss, Renee Ritchie, we were doing a podcast, and he's like, "You need to own the domain chihuahua.coffee." And I bought it during the show. I was like, "Obviously, I do." So now it's become the thing that I send everyone to.
I had a boss who suggested that my website be Whirly Wide Web. And I didn't,
love that.
I didn't take them up on that fantastic offer, but you were smart enough to get chihuahua.coffee.
I did. I hopped on that train.
Worldly Wide Web has not really taken off, sadly.
Oh.
Doctor. And JJ Stone, the Memoji podcast. I don't know if this has ever been done in This Week in Tech History. An entire podcast done via Memoji. Your cute, bright-eyed Hello Kitty face. Thank you for joining us.
Let me talk to the people. First of all, tomorrow, dropping Situational Awareness podcast with my daughter, where we talk about being a ninja, fighting and escaping gun shootings in schools and how you should live your life and be prepared. That's going to be great. Secondly, whole lot of tech shows I put up on IQMZ.com. But most importantly, tweet me at ODoctor. Ask me any question you want. Just say hi. If you ask me a question, I will reply to you with an emoji. I spend the time making videos for all the people that tweet me and ask me something, because that's how much I love the Twit listeners. I'm here for you. I'm excited. Tim Cook called me because next year y'all gonna amped up and get more excitement in your show, and I think my Memoji might be the thing that pushes y'all over the top. You see what I'm
Doctor,
saying?
here's what I think we need to do. You and I, this is gonna be my plan for aging gracefully on television. Is you and I are gonna have a Memoji dating show. It's gonna be like, I don't know, some combination of, what was the one where they had the Bachelor, like Bachelor One? Mm-hmm. And then at the end, we reveal what everybody looks like in real life.
It really is the greatest idea. Let's do this. That'll be so much fun. Even if we just did it for a one-off special and got a bajillion views.
I could see Apple picking that up for their like TV thing that they're trying to do. You know,
that's better than all the shows they put out there. Apple Tim Cook, call
Right?
brother.
You-
I'm right here
This
for
is what you have to
I'm
do.
waiting.
You have to pick The Bachelor. It's like what was it called? What was that show where you had three bachelors?
Oh, yeah.
What was it called?
and they
Mystery
were
Bachelor
Dating?
number one, Bachelor number two.
Yeah, Bachelor, but now it's going to be in Memojis, and you pick the one you like based on their
Yes, I love
Memoji
it.
persona, and then you reveal at the end, and they go on a real date. I think we've got something, gentlemen.
This is
I dig it.
Thanks.
I'm investing.
Okay, good. We've got investors, we've got hosts. This is happening, and another twit is in the can.
Doing the twit.